I'm Jillian, this is Sparked by Scripture, and this video is to help you pick out which Bible version you should have. And spoiler alert, I'm going to just direct you to the one that you'll read. But I'm going to talk through some of the differences between the different versions, and we'll just talk through them. There are some cool resources though, if you actually want to really compare the actual texts. You can use Bible Gateway, Blue Letter Bible. I'll share some screenshots here, but they help you walk through the scripture for free. You can use different translations, it's all great. But this video, I wanted to compare the different translations to different types of programming platforms, if I may. I hope to keep this video somewhat brief so I don't bore you with all of the details. And I want to use different software programming languages, which I understand that hardware description language is not technically a programming language, but you understand that you kind of use it in a similar fashion. So we're going to use that as an example. So if we're talking about the Greek or Hebrew, that would be like you're literally working with a circuit, like this janky thing. This is the first circuit I made in college. It's not great because it's a sound amplifier. Also, I need to like resolder, you know, this battery ground and the negative for the audio. And probably shouldn't have just like that much space for induction when you have noise, like sound going through it. But imagine that this is done well. And that would be the Greek and Hebrew. It's like literally, you're looking at the literal thing. But to a normal person's eye, I don't know about you, I can't really read Greek or Hebrew. Maybe I can recognize some letters. And to a normal person's eye, just looking at this, they're not going to know what's happening. Maybe they can identify that there's a speaker and a potentiometer. But other than that, they're probably a little confused. So that's why we have different programming languages, and that's why we have different Bible translations. And some of them are built off of different fundamentals as well. So we have programming languages that allow us to program things so that they work like a circuit. They can change how something works, ones and zeros, all that. But we can use more of our own language and ideas to program it versus just typing ones and zeros and whatever to get something to function like we want, correct? Following with me? I would take the ESV or the NASB. Those are your most word for word translated from the Greek and the Hebrew. They're going to be a little bit challenging to read. Sorry. You can tell I like the pocket-sized Bibles. They are literal word for word. And I say that they're a little bit harder to read because the sentence structure of Greek and Hebrew is different than the sentence structure that we have in English. So there's many things that you'll read, run-on sentences, just the way words are placed, that's really kind of confusing when you're reading the Bible, if I'm being honest. The NASB is a little harder to read than the ESV sometimes. And to describe them in circuit board language, I would use hardware description language, everyone's favorite. They're Altera FPGA boards. And if you've never programmed with hardware description language, it's just very counterintuitive. You are programming and you're literally describing how the whole board works. Like when I write program on this, I'm describing how each component functions. So it gets a little confusing because it's not programming like you're reading line by line. It's like a whole different ballgame. And so I use hardware description language to describe kind of the literal clunky challenge that you might have with an ESV or an NASB. I still think the ESV is really approachable, so don't let this scare you from it. I've used the ESV for many years, but it is a little clunky sometimes. Next batter up is the New King James Version and the King James Version. I would compare that to Excel's VBA. If you've ever used it, it's pretty robust. It's been around a long time, but you can also be honest with yourself and say that it's a little difficult and challenging to understand at times. That's how I feel about VBA. Why do the L's look like the ones? Why is it so case sensitive? I don't know. And it's a little hard to use, but it's a pretty robust language. It's still pretty literal word for word, but there's like a spectrum of word for word, ESV, NASB, all the way to thought for thought that would be in the NLT, which we'll get to. ESV is English Standard version. NASB is the New American Standard Bible. New King James Version. King James Version. There you go. Next on our list here would be NIV. That's a pretty robust version as well. That's what I grew up using. That's what I think most evangelicals used up until ESV really became popular in the 2000s. And I would compare that to Atmel's C++. Like, we're a little bit better than VBA in terms of like workability at that point. It makes a little more sense. There's packages. It's not as case sensitive, and it's a heck of a lot easier to use than hardware description languages, but still pretty confusing to use. So NIV's in the middle ground there. New King James kind of leans more word for word like ESV. NIV, New International Version, and the CSB, which is the Christian Standard Bible, are kind of in the middle. And the Christian Standard Bible, I liken this to Python. Really easy to use. I like this. I flip-flop between this and ESV. And there was a long stint where I was New King James and NIV. That's why I have these Bibles. But in recent years, I've switched between the CSB when I'm like in a season where I just want stuff to be easily digestible. Then I'll go with that. Just like Python. It's a little bit just user-friendly. Packages are easier. The vernacular just makes a lot more sense. You need a lot less code for the same amount of stuff. And then our final one here is the NLT Bible. Classic. Very thought for thought. So it's still sticking with the scriptures. Don't ever let someone, if this is your translation, don't let someone ever tell you that it's not accurate. Again, when you go from word for word to thought for thought, you have to make some interpretations on thoughts that are, on, if we're all being honest, a little bit ambiguous in the actual language. So that's just out there. When you're reading NLT, people have to make assertive interpretations of what the thought is. But that also, if that's what you need to read, then use that. And I would liken that to the Raspberry Pi, which is in this project, and I don't want to take it out. There we go. There's my Raspberry Pi. But if you've ever worked with Raspberry Pi, it is a lot easier to work with than most other programming languages, at least in my experience, especially if you use like Node.js or something. It's just really easy to use. So that's my kind of breakdown, simple circuit software versus Bible lesson. Hopefully you can learn from that, and it helps you figure out which one's right for you. There are also different kinds of Bibles that you can use. It depends on what you want them for. You can see that I really enjoy the Pocket Edition because I love taking my Bible wherever I go. Maybe not in my purse. I don't carry a purse. But I like putting it in my backpack, in my bag to go camping. And having it be the Pocket version makes that really accessible. I don't like sitting with a giant thumping Bible in the middle of church, but there are study Bibles that are going to have a lot of good notes for you. That's the other spectrum of the Pocket Bible, which is just like small font, no notes, literally just scripture and some footnotes. And then I'm probably missing some. There's the Interlinear, which has like the Greek and the Hebrew in it. I can actually show you that. This is an ESV Interlinear of the New Testament, so it literally, like we've seen in Logos, it has the Greek and the English right there. Maybe you want that. And then the other version I was thinking of that I wanted to make note of is a cross-reference Bible, and so it's going to have in the middle of it usually, actually the CSB here, it'll have a bunch of cross-references where you can kind of track down that scripture. Not this one. I think this one does it. Yeah. So like in the middle you have all your cross-references. And it's still pretty thin. This is my Pocket Edition. This is this guy. Pretty similar, not too big. So those are also different types of Bibles in the same translation. Pick the one that you'll read. That's the best advice anyone's given me. I can't say it enough. Pick the Bible version that you'll read. Don't pick the one that you're like, oh, I have to be word for word. I've got to read this. if it's too clunky and then it deters you from reading, then don't read it. But if there's one that like really connects with and it just makes it really accessible to you, read that one.